You are listening to High Heels and High Chairs, voted the best online resource for busy moms who wish to stay strong, sexy, and centered in a world of spit up and sippy cups. Whether you're a new mom, a grandmom, a future mom, or somewhere in between, you'll love these priceless tips, tricks, and tools you will learn today. Here is your host, top female fat loss and hormone specialist, Dr. Michelle Sands.
Hi, and welcome back to High Heels and High Chairs, where we are talking about how to stay strong, sexy, and centered in a world of spit-up and sippy cups. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Sands, and today we are talking about clean eating and a clean eating lifestyle. I have a guest here who is one of my favorite people when it comes to clean eating. She's written 3 books, and from one of the books, there's an excerpt that says, the cleaner we eat, the clearer we think, and the better we can embrace good health and nutrition. And that really sums up the whole idea of having that clean lifestyle. Terry Walters is a clean eating lifestyle expert. She's really at the forefront of the clean eating movement, and she's dedicated her life and her career to sharing her passion and knowledge about how to eat clean and live really well. She's inspiring to me and to so many health experts and practitioners, as well as moms all across the world who are just trying to do what's right for their family and really provide clean, healthy foods for their families and themselves and nourish everybody in the household. Terry's author of 2 best-selling books, Clean Food and Clean Start. She's won numerous book awards, and she's also been talked about by, if you guys watch the Food Network, Mario Batali called her book, Clean Food, one of the most exciting books based on fresh produce and simple recipes that he's seen in years. And when we think about clean food, we don't always think about it being exciting. So that's why I brought Terry on, because she really does make it fun, exciting, enticing, and really she's passionate about it. So Terry, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to get into this conversation with you, so thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Oh, you're so welcome. So Terry, before we get into talking about clean eating and living a clean lifestyle for moms specifically, let's talk a little bit about what inspired you to really dedicate your life to this topic of clean eating, and if you were always a super healthy kind of girl growing up, or how this spark happened for you.
Well, when I was growing up, my mother made all of our meals from scratch, but we had heart disease in the family, and we had other health issues, so it was kind of always on my mind. But the food, we didn't have other options when I was growing up, but that didn't mean we were necessarily healthy. What a meal looked like then is very different than what I would consider a healthy meal now. So, there was always a quote-unquote starch, whatever the heck a starch is, and, and a green vegetable, which was also very good. And more often than not, there was animal protein, and it was kind of all compartmentalized on the plate, so we knew where everything belonged and went. But when I was in college, I discovered that I had extremely high cholesterol, and that's really where it began. I knew that, 1, I didn't want to go on any medication to control that for the rest of my life, and 2, I knew that I wasn't going to make any real progress towards improving my health living on a college campus in those days, and being dependent on food service. So I moved off campus, and I got an apartment with a kitchen, and I started teaching myself how to cook. And at the time, there were 1 or 2 actually pretty good vegetarian cookbooks, but even those books, which many of them are, I think both of them actually are still out, but are in like the 12 millionth edition, where they've taken out all the sugar and all the dairy that were in them back then. So, I didn't want to eat that either. So I started learning how to cook, and then, everything really became much more powerful to me when I had my own children. And, I think your audience can relate. Like, it's one thing to be empowered to control your own health, but it's a totally different thing when you look at this child that is completely dependent on you. And every choice you make, you feel the impact of that choice. And
definitely. I mean, a lot of times as moms, like before we have our children, like we can kind of wing it and you can get by and you're doing the best you can, but you're not really taking the time to really educate yourself because you're just busy, you're living life, it's just you. But once that child comes, oh my God, like we need to learn, we need to know exactly what the best we can do for that child. So you're so right.
Yeah, my dad always says it's much easier to become a parent than it is to be a parent. I'm like, oh yeah, much easier to have a child than to be a parent. It's a big undertaking, and when you have children that have any issues at all, like we analyze everything. Like, oh my goodness, how many times did I go to the crib and put my finger under their nose to make sure they were still breathing? And so, when my youngest's cheeks would be fiery red, and I mean like hot and red after she ate something, and everyone would say to me, "Oh, isn't that so cute?" And I would think, no, it's just not cute.
Yeah.
And what's going on? And so it really it really drove the message home for me and made it that much more important for me to figure out the connection that the food had between how I was fueling my body and how I was fueling my kids and healing my kids. And, at the time I was I had stopped work after my second was born, or right around when my second was born. I had moved. I was not feeling a sense of community. I had family, but I didn't have, not every aspect of me was feeling connected and fulfilled. And by sharing this journey, opening up my home to people who had similar interests, I started teaching cooking classes. And everyone would be like, oh, thank you so much. That was such a great class. We're so glad you're bringing this to us. But honestly, it was all for me. It was all, I need to have like-minded men and women in my life. And that meal that I prepared for people and that we shared around my kitchen table, that's what got me through to the next time. Hearing all the wisdom in the room and soaking in all that good energy. In the beginning, I would serve the meal and nurse my child to sleep and then come back to say goodnight to everybody. So that's really what got me through. And I think that theme has stayed through everything that I do with all of my books, that it's one thing to eat clean, but we're nourished by so much more. And sometimes it's those connections and our place in the world that is as nourishing as the food we eat, and sometimes even more.
Oh, that's so important. Because, a lot of times when we think about eating clean or clean eating, a lot of people liken it to a diet or to restriction or to having, your plain chicken, your plain broccoli on the plate day after day. And it's just something to fuel your body that's not really fueling your spirit at all. You're not excited about it. It's not something that a lot of times as moms or women, we're making that meal for ourselves and then we're making something else for our husband because he's not going to eat that plain nothing on the plate.
If you're not excited,
talk about this.
if you're not excited about it, and you're putting it on the table for your child is never going to get excited about it. So, I had one doctor when I first discovered I had this high cholesterol who said to me, "You need more brown rice and kale." So I went home and I made brown rice and kale, and it was disgusting. I'm like, there has got to be a way to make this delicious. And really, that's where everything that I do comes from, was that journey to figure out, okay, this is what real food is. And it's always changing, the definition of what that real food is. The environment changes, the resources. But if this is, the minimally processed food, and the goal is to make it taste delicious so we can nourish ourselves and get excited about sitting down to a delicious meal, our food needs to nourish all of our senses. We want to smell it and have it smell delicious and have it look delicious. Before we ever taste it, you want your mouth to water. You want to be excited about it. And if you're not, move on to something else, because, people say to me all the time, I don't really like kale. I think they think I'm going to tell them, you got to eat kale. And
right.
And my feeling is, there are a lot of ways to get those minerals and that calcium and, that burst of alkalinity. And so if you don't like kale, personally, I think if there's something you don't like, chances are you just haven't had it made well, or made in such a way where it brings out the really delicious tastes and it balances the ones that might be more overwhelming. But if you really don't like it, move on and find another option, because nobody should eat food that they don't like. And so you'll see, like, all my recipes, they're I use a variety of tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and those tastes in balance so that you get that umami, or that irresistible taste, and all the colors of the rainbow. So it's beautiful.
They're very visually beautiful.
Satisfying.
Even the things that sound like something that I wouldn't normally eat, like on the pictures on your blog. Oh my God! I'm like, that looks delicious. I just want to grab it and have a bite. But the things that don't sound like it's so delicious to people, like like kale and things like that. But so you're actually trained as a chef, correct?
I am not. How do you like that?
You're not. Oh, wow.
I'm not. I have no culinary training at all. And I think that's actually one of the things that makes my books a little more user friendly, is that I'm just a mom in my kitchen. I would rather spend my time, eating with my family than preparing the meal. It could be 5 o'clock and I'm thinking, what are we going to have for dinner? I'm just like everybody else. So
wow,
I think
awesome.
that makes a big difference. And there's nothing contrived. Yeah, nobody wants to be spending their time trying to figure out what on earth someone means in a recipe. Just as my kids say, just dump and stir, Mom. Just dump and stir.
Wow, so all your things are pretty easy, simple technique-wise. Like, you don't need to know how to do any crazy culinary techniques or buy special equipment to make these recipes, right? It's just pretty much simple.
They're very simple. They're really straightforward. But what they do have, and I know that it's probably one of the things you notice as a naturopath, is that there's all sorts of information on how to increase the nutritional value. So if you're making grains, to know that you can put a piece of kombu seaweed in. You don't even have to eat the seaweed. It'll diffuse in the water, and the grains will absorb those minerals, and it'll alkalinize those grains. So there are all sorts of tips like that. But my goal really is just to make it delicious. And I think clean, as you started saying, people have a lot of judgments about food, about diets. Nobody likes to feel like they're deprived. And so, especially as moms, we put so much pressure on ourselves, and there shouldn't be any of that guilt or any negative feelings or judgments that come through in the foods that we're preparing for our family. If there's someone in the family that doesn't like something, don't make it, but make it a dialogue. I think the dialogue is more important than the food. Talk about the choices. Talk about what you're trying to accomplish. Have everybody participate, because then they're going to buy in. And even with, toddlers and infants, you had mentioned to me once, everybody feels like clean has to be a plain piece of chicken or a plain steamed vegetables. And as adults, that will never satisfy us. But the truth of the matter is, if you made plain chicken and plain steamed vegetables for an infant or a toddler, and you got excited and sat down and served it with a big smile on your face and shared it, and this is so yummy, and everybody did that, that child will not really care what's on the plate. They're going to care about the interaction of the meal.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. I mean, it's my son. It's a tease what you just said, because I actually like steamed broccoli, so I actually make it and I like it. And I say, I'm like yum 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 yum, and I'm eating it and he's eating it, and he actually loves steamed broccoli, which is not typical for a 1-year-old, but it's because I love steamed broccoli. So I think you're so right.
Yeah, that dialogue is so important, and that's how we teach our children more than anything, through our actions and our dialogue. So they're picking up on what we like. They pick up all of our judgments about food before they've ever even tried them. They're connected to us on so many levels. So it's really important to be mindful about what you're making, how you're talking about it, even going to the grocery store. Bring your child with you. Bring your spouse, your partner with you. Pick things together. Talk about, let's see if we can get a rainbow of color in this cart. Or go to a farmer's market and pick things together. And then we'll come home and experiment together. But, yeah, sometimes I think the actions around the food are more important even than, well, certainly than variety. I mean, I eat could drink the same green smoothie every day of the week all spring. It's just, that's when I crave it, and I don't even want the variety then. I just want to know I'm going to be able to have that delicious smoothie.
Sometimes, like, a lot of my patients, sometimes I'll just give them, like, a couple of different breakfast recipes to use and just rotate through, or just to have a go-to one. Because sometimes you don't want to make that decision in the morning. Like, you just want to have your go-to that you enjoy, and that's okay. Like, it doesn't always have to be, like, a brand new recipe for every single day of the week, for every single meal, because, that gets difficult too. And then that becomes a chore, and then you start to not enjoy what you're doing because now it's too much work.
And if you think about it, there's something really grounding about knowing you're going to wake up and have a breakfast that you know works for you, right? It's stability, and for some people that allows them to go live, a really exciting life, whereas other people need the variety in the morning. So much of it isn't necessarily about the food, but it's really more just your personal needs. And so make use of that.
That's interesting. That's really interesting, because I was reading this article recently about, like, the most successful people and some of the trends that they do, and a lot of them, like, Steve Jobs and, like, Barack Obama, they wear the same clothes every day, like the same type of outfit, because they don't want to make that decision. And a lot of also successful people also have the same breakfast every morning. If you get decision fatigue, if you have to, like, make too many decisions first thing in the morning. So it's kind of, we're talking about variety, but then we're also talking about simplicity as well, and doing something that you crave and you enjoy. So I think that's important to state.
Yeah, definitely.
So you talked about earlier when you talked about your cookbooks, you said, or not yours, but the ones that you referred to when you were starting out in college, they were vegetarian cookbooks. Are all your recipes vegetarian, or is that something that you have as your lifestyle?
All of my books are vegan and gluten-free, but awesome. I am not either. I do subscribe to that lifestyle, and I would say I don't let it rule me, but I do believe that it's a balanced approach. It's how I like to eat, but I don't particularly care for rigidity around what I eat. And as the food chain has changed, and what's available to me has changed so dramatically in the last few years, I'm almost more interested in eating something that I know was grown or raised well than much of the conventional food that's available in the grocery store. And so that has changed, it has changed what I eat. I also am a distance runner, and, very often I find I can fuel and recover just fine on a vegan diet. But sometimes I feel as though I start to lose ground, and maybe I'm not recovering as well, and the cumulative effect of that might be just becoming more weak, which could mean I catch a cold, or it could mean I'm more susceptible to seasonal allergies. And when that happens, I really do feel that sometimes some animal protein helps to give me it's a sign to me I'm not eating in balance. And I think that's the most important thing, is we all have reasons for what we do and don't want to eat, but I think if we can listen with our hearts and listen to our bodies, to how they're responding, then we can change appropriately and nourish ourselves appropriately. When we adopt a label, for instance, and say, I'm vegan, right? That label is not listening to my body. It's not listening to changes in my environment. It's not listening to the changes in season. It doesn't know it's available from local farms and local grocers, right? And so in that regard, it says judgmental, and it certainly doesn't know your unique constitution. So in that regard, I try to never say never, but I make mindful choices, and I don't eat much animal protein. And, until very recently, I wasn't eating any gluten either, but I have, for the last, I've gone back and forth for the last decade eating sourdough bread, and I finally made a starter last spring, and as a result, we're eating a lot of sourdough bread in my home. They don't last very long.
Sourdough bread. That's really interesting that you say that, because I think it's so important to listen to your body, and when you're not eating in a way that allows you to listen to your body, when we're taking in a lot of processed foods and a lot of chemicals, a lot of times we miss these cues from our bodies. So being that you have been on a cleaning lifestyle for so long now, I think you're actually able to listen to your body and giving it what it needs. I mean, that's the ultimate way to nurture yourself, is to give your body what it needs and not restrict. So I love that you don't use the labels, because, really listening to your body is what it's all about. That's why we really study clean eating, and that's why we care about our health. And if we're teaching our children, teaching them to learn how to listen to their bodies too, that's probably one of the best things you can teach them.
Exactly. Honestly, I think that is you've just boiled it down to the most important piece, at least as mothers, is that you can't go to a keg party with them and stand over their shoulder and say, you really shouldn't do that. And when someone hands you something you don't want them to have, you can't be there to say, don't take that, right? But, and it's the same thing with diet. You can't force them, nor should you even try forcing them to eat anything. But if you can have the dialogue and empower them to make those healthy choices, that really is the best thing we can do. They may never make them, but it's not our job to make them for them. Our job is to empower them to make it. And so whenever I have moms in my classes, they always, I hear like an audible sigh of relief when I say, it's not your job to get the good food in. It's your job to provide good food. It's your job to model good behavior. It's your job to teach and empower, but it's not your job to get the good food in. And it really does, it shifts everything. So when I put down dinner, for my kids at all ages, it was never, I hope they like it. Oh, you don't want that, honey. I'm going to go get you something else that you will eat. It was, I'm going to honor that you have things that you like and you dislike. So there will always be something here that you like, but there may be things that you're not sure about. But they're there because this is what dinner looks like. And if you don't want it, that's fine, because there'll be another meal coming up in, 10 hours. But I never went and said, okay, if you don't want it, that's okay, because I'm going to get you a bagel or some macaroni and cheese or something white and non-nutritional. It was always, and if I didn't know, what to make, I'd ask my kids, pick a vegetable. What colors haven't you had today? Let's make our meal around that. What would you like? And when I let them pick, sometimes they pick the frozen peas in the freezer. And so that's what we would eat. And sometimes they picked the kale. You never know. But,
right, and when they're picking it, like when they're involved, they want to eat it then, because they made the decision. They're part of it, and I think that's really important, getting your kids involved. But really, also with children who do have sensitivities to food, like educating them and letting them know, like, okay, maybe when I eat dairy, like, how does that make me feel? Maybe when I eat gluten, how does that make me feel? So that they know, like, it's not that they can't have it, it's that sometimes when they eat that, they don't feel so good, so then they start making the choices that make them feel better. And I think that, like, something for us to learn as adults, but also for our children to learn, they're going to really be set up for a lifetime of better health.
Right. I think that the day-to-day isn't about getting nutrition into our children. The day-to-day is about teaching, and, what we teach is about the big picture, the long run, what happens in the long run. But the day-to-day, if they don't like a meal, if there's something you made, they're not going to perish. And there's no need to cave on what you're trying to teach by offering something that's non-nutritional. I'm sorry you don't like this. I'll try and make something you like tomorrow, or maybe you can make it. My kids, when they were really little, it had to be easily 2 or 3 years of serving kale, collard greens. They liked broccoli, but the dark leafy greens, those were a challenge. And it was 2 to 3 years of their saying, no, we'll pass. I mean, I served them 2 or 3 times a week. And they'd say, no, I'll just have the quinoa, or I'll just have the black bean burger, or whatever it would be. And then finally they kind of threw in the towel and said, okay, fine. And they started eating it. And now, my kids are, my oldest is 18, and my oldest is a great chef. My youngest is, as she says, when she makes something in the kitchen and the kitchen isn't on fire, it's a good day. But the one thing she can make are her favorite sautéed collard greens, and the other she can make is her favorite raw kale salad. So
nice.
She might go out and make really unhealthy choices. She loves sugar. She knows, but she's making them consciously, those choices. And in the long run, she's coming back to sautéed collard greens and raw kale. I mean, it could be a lot worse.
Exactly. Well, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. So you have a great gift for our audience. You have some great recipes that they can download. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of recipes that they'll be looking at?
I can, and they are brand new recipes, so they're not in any of my books. And if they go onto my website, terrywalters.net, they'll see on the little side there's a little subscribe button, and when they subscribe, once they subscribe, they'll get an email with a downloadable file with 2 recipes. One is really great for moms, and I like to think of my recipes as templates, so I encourage people, make it once, and then so you know what you're going for, and then just keep the same ratio, but feel free to experiment with different nuts and seeds and dried fruits. So one of them actually is a little ball that's a no-bake, kind of like a granola-y energy snack. I made them last year and sent them to school for my daughter's lacrosse team, and I haven't heard from them. They haven't stopped saying, when are you going to send those again? So that's one of them, and the other is more meal friendly. So both brand new, so they'll have to go on and give them a try.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds great. And also, when you go on the website, Terry has some great recipes. It's right on her website in her blog area, or under recipes. My favorite is that she has these little, it's collard greens. It looks like sushi. I think it's called collard green maki, and it has a really great sauce that goes with it. Oh my God, it's so good. You wouldn't even know. I don't miss the fish. I don't miss the rice or the sushi. I don't miss any of that because it's actually so delicious and just a different way to use collard greens. So
well, it's so funny you say that because even though they're called maki, I didn't make them as a substitute to sushi. I made them because my kids couldn't eat any breads, and we needed something to wrap sandwiches in, and so we said, okay, well, we can wrap pretty much whatever we had for dessert last night, we can wrap in a steamed collard green and call it a wrap.
It's beautiful.
So that's where that came from. So yeah, there are plenty of recipes, all organized by season. Thank you.
Awesome. And so we got those downloads, the recipes on your website, and then let's talk about your books. Your books are just really a great resource for moms who just want to really just expand their horizons and learn some tips and just get some ideas. I love the way your recipes are interchangeable, like you said. So, if you want to use that collard green wrap for something else, go to it, but now you have the technique and the idea. So talk a little bit about the books that you have available. I think you have 3 of them out right now, right?
I do. The most recent is Eat Clean, Live Well, and they're all organized by season, and I don't ever repeat recipes, but I always recommend people start with the most recent because it is inevitably the most trend forward, the most relevant and current. And Eat Clean, Live Well is different from the other 2 books in that in the beginning of each season it also gives some clean lifestyle tips. So it could be healthy ways to cleanse in the spring or ways of using the harvest to boost your immune system in the fall, blending teas in the winter. So, and there's introductory recipes for fermented foods, which is really great, and some dehydrated foods. So just a whole section on breakfast. So it has a little bit more only because people are so great to write to me and say, I love your books. Could you write about this? And so that always informs the next book, and that is exactly how we got a whole section on breakfast.
Awesome. Very cool. And you guys can go to either your local bookstore like Barnes & Noble, or you can go right to my favorite website, Amazon. and grab the books on there.
Yeah, and all three of the books are on my website, and they can click through from there as well, but at least they'd be able to check them out and learn a little bit about the differences between each through the website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Terry. It's been so great speaking with you, and I really just love your approach to really bringing families up in a clean, healthy way. It's really a great outlook on life and being healthy and making it a place of abundance instead of a place of sacrifice and, discipline and all that horrible stuff that we hate.
Well, Michelle, as you know, and as you are being so proactive in doing, being a mom is hard enough. So the more resources, the more support, and the less judgment we can have on ourselves, the healthier we're going to be, even if we don't change one thing about the way that we eat. So, thank you for pulling this summit together. I'm really enjoying it so far and really honored to be part of it.
Oh, thanks, Terry. And thank you guys all for listening today. I know that you guys are so busy with your families and your schedules and work and commitments in the community that I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us today. And I hope that you got some great information and value out of today's episode. Go ahead and download Terry's recipes, check out her books, and have a wonderful, happy, healthy day. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you received a lot of value out of this interview. I know that I did. I want you to open up to the possibility of making this new year the greatest opportunity that you have had so far to improve your life. This is about breaking out of paradigms. It's about learning the art of living. It is about honoring who you are as a woman as you discover who you are as a mother. It is about taking care of your body, mind, and spirit so that you can take better care of your family and be a shining example, a role model for your children so that they can grow up to be healthy, happy, and successful. I promise to continue to bring you educational, empowering, and inspiring content to help you achieve the body that you dream about and the life that you are meant to live. Stay tuned for more value-packed interviews and be sure to check out all the resources on my website, metabolicmama.com. Until next time, wishing you a happy, healthy, hot day. Take care, mamas.